All right, today we are diving into something huge, a totally new way of thinking about food and clothing security. But, before we can even talk about a solution, we have to get real about what's actually causing the problem. And I'm willing to bet it's not what you're thinking.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that honestly changes the whole game. Think about a country like Australia, a place that's swimming in food. So, what's the number one reason people there are going hungry? So, you might be thinking, a lack of food? Nope, not even close. In fact, Australia produces enough food to feed its entire population 3 times over. Yeah, you heard that right. The real problem, the thing that's actually stopping people from eating, is access. It's about money, and it's being blocked by a completely different crisis.
And that crisis starts right here, 1.26 million. That's not just a number, that's 1.26 million low-income households in Australia that are under severe housing stress. We're talking about families having to fork over more than a third of everything they earn just to keep a roof over their heads. And that's where the dominoes start to fall, and they fall hard. That housing crisis leads directly to this number, 3.7 million households. That's how many are now facing food insecurity. The connection is just brutal. Because when your rent or mortgage is that high, you've got to cut something, right? There's this saying that just nails it perfectly. The rent eats first. And it's so true. Your housing, that's a fixed cost. You can't negotiate it down. You pay it or you're out on the street. So what's the one flexible part of the budget? Food. And that's the first thing on the chopping block. It's a simple but absolutely devastating reality for millions.
Okay, so if we know the root of the problem is money, it's about economic access, then why are the systems we have in place, the charities and food banks, failing to solve it? Well, it turns out the very structure of these systems is a huge part of the problem. Take a look at the food supply chain. It's incredibly centralized. You've got this supermarket duopoly that controls a whopping 2/3 of the entire market. It's all built on a just-in-time model, which sounds super efficient, right? But it's like a house of cards. One little gust of wind, a flood, a pandemic, you name it, and the whole thing starts to shake.
And it's not just the big supermarkets. This is something that hits even the most well-meaning organizations. Think about your local charity shop. They start with this amazing mission, right, to provide affordable essentials for the community. But they exist in the real world. They have to pay rent, pay bills, and that pressure to bring in money can lead to this thing called mission creep. Slowly but surely, the focus can shift from serving the community to just making a sale. They start to operate more like a regular store, and that original purpose gets a little lost.
So that brings us to the big question. How do we build something better? Something that can't be corrupted by these pressures? Let's dive into a new kind of model, one that's designed from the very beginning to be different, because it changes the most important thing: who's in charge. And here it is. It's called a purpose-driven, decentralized ecosystem. Now, that's a mouthful, I know, but break it down. Instead of a pyramid with a CEO at the top, think of it more like a web. It's a network that is literally owned and run by the very community it's supposed to serve. The whole point of this design is to build a firewall to protect that social mission from those outside commercial forces we were just talking about.
And this entire model stands on three really solid pillars. First, equitable access. Simple, right? Everyone gets a fair shot. Second, resilience and transparency. This thing is built to last, and you can see exactly how it works. No smoke and mirrors. And the last one, user and community sovereignty. This is the real game changer. It means the community, the people using the system, are in the driver's seat. They own their data, they make the rules.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how does it actually work? How do you create something that can fund itself but not sell its soul? This is where it gets really, really cool, with this mix of old school community spirit and some very new tech. So the engine running this whole thing is something called a DAO, or a decentralized autonomous organization. I know, the name sounds like something out of science fiction, but really just think of it as a digital co-op. The rules aren't hidden in some boardroom, they're written in code for everyone to see. And decisions, they're not made by a boss, they're voted on by the members. It's like a transparent, democratic framework for an online community.
This chart really lays it all out. If you look at a traditional nonprofit, you've got this top-down board making all the calls. But with something like a DAO or a platform cooperative, you can see how ownership is spread out among the actual users and contributors. That's not just a small tweak, it completely flips the script.
It means protecting the mission isn't just a nice idea, it's literally built into the structure of the thing.
And what about the money? This is so important. Most platforms you use every day, they're funded by what we call extractive models. They're mining your data, selling your attention to advertisers. This system does the complete opposite. It's non-extractive. It makes money by providing real value to the network, like access for partners, not by exploiting the people in the network. It's a fundamental shift that keeps the money aligned with the mission.
So what does that actually look like? Well, for example, a partner organization might buy a special digital membership, which could be an NFT, that works like a key to access certain network features. Or maybe community members can send tiny payments, micropayments, directly to creators whose work they appreciate. You could even have small service fees for using the platform to help manage a big project, like setting up a new community garden.
And for anyone who wants to join, it's not just a free-for-all. It's designed as a real journey. You start at the foundation level, just learning the ropes. Then you move to integration, where you start taking small actions in your own neighborhood. And finally, you reach impact, where you've got the tools and support to actually lead your own project. It's a pathway to becoming a real leader in the community.
All right, so this sounds amazing on a local level, right? But how in the world do you scale that? How do you grow it into a global movement without becoming another big, centralized bureaucracy? The answer to that is just brilliant. Instead of trying to build one giant pyramid, the system uses what's called a train-the-trainer model. Think of it like this. Instead of just giving someone a fish, you teach them how to fish, and you give them the tools to teach everyone else in their village how to fish too. You empower local leaders with a complete toolkit, a blueprint, so they can replicate the entire model in their own communities. It's designed to spread like wildfire, but in a good way. And this is where some of that new Web3 tech comes in to pour fuel on the fire. You've got learn-to-earn models that actually reward people for completing training modules. And once they've learned a new skill, they get an on-chain credential. Just think of that as a super secure digital certificate that proves they have that skill, and it's theirs to keep and show off forever. It's a 21st century resume that you completely control. And this isn't just some vague dream. There's a clear roadmap. Phase 1 is all about laying the groundwork, getting the legal and tech stuff sorted. Phase 2 is go time, launching the first community and focusing on growth. And then the final phase, phase 3, is all about scaling and decentralization. That's the beautiful endgame, where control is gradually and completely handed over to the community itself. So, when you put it all together, this whole model, this whole blueprint, it leaves us with one really big, powerful question to think about. This is about more than just food or clothes. It's a different way of organizing ourselves. It really makes you wonder, what if? What if the communities themselves actually owned the systems they rely on every single day?